if what we're seeing for services, is more tangible, so we can see that the roads get paved and the sidewalks get fixed, I think more people are apt to say, okay, I can see my tax dollars at work.
Hi, my name is Camille Bartlett, and I am with Ward 3 Councillor Stephanie Peach, who's running for re-election. Welcome.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. There may be some people watching who might not know about you, maybe just moved to the city or don't watch council meetings.
Well, my name's Stephanie Peach. I'm the Ward 3 Councillor. I'm wrapping up my first term and seeking re-election for a second term. I have lived in Peabody my whole life. I went to Peabody Public Schools, met my husband, who also went to Peabody Public Schools. And we live over near Bishop Fenwick now. We have 2 girls, a 3-year-old, and my oldest daughter will be 5 tomorrow. So we have a busy life, but we have always tried to be involved in the community. And a few years ago, I made the decision with my family to seek election for the Ward 3 seat. And so far it's been busy, but it's been good for, I think, the community and for my family.
So what motivated you to run the first time?
I think I just saw a lot of miscommunication or lack of communication from the elected officials for projects that were happening in Ward 3 that were affecting the schools, the traffic, and just the quality of life in Ward 3. So like I said, myself and my husband, we've always been very involved in the community. So just kind of seemed right. We can complain about it, we can try to fix it from the outside, but it's much easier to try to fix things from the inside. It's not easy to fix things from the inside, but just a way to get involved and try to be that bridge between the community of Ward 3 and the city.
So what are the biggest strengths you bring to this position?
I think I'm a very just forthcoming, honest, upfront person. I talk to and meet with a lot of residents in Ward 3, and I can't always give them an answer that they actually want to hear, but I don't pander them. And I think most people appreciate that. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, a lot of things that can be improved, just processes that can be improved throughout the city that I think will, in the long term, make things better for people. But trying to get there takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of communication. So my communication skills as far as working with different department heads and working with the mayor and other councilors and other city officials, I think are pretty great. I have a good relationship with the people that work within the city right now. And anyone that comes on board, I always look to build a relationship with them, and then being able to use those relationship skills to help people in my ward. That's probably the biggest strength that I bring to this seat.
So how can the council and the city do a better job communicating? Because it seems like certainly a motivation for why you ran in the first place, but also there are people out there that say that they're not getting the information, that there are things that they're not hearing about, and the lack of newspapers, maybe they're not getting the daily reports. So I'm just wondering what could be done to improve that process.
Yeah, I think we've started moving in a direction of utilizing technology to our advantage. They just launched that Peabody Connect app, which I think there's a lot more that we can do with it, but right now it's been great. I think it really brings the main usage of the city website to a mobile user. I've heard great feedback from other people on utilizing just the problem reporter for potholes or sidewalks, and they're getting responses from the departments, which is great. I think there's some other programs out there that we could utilize for things, issue communication, but also I really think we just need to do a better job of creating a sense of community, creating a community that wants to be involved and wants to hear things. Like, you said, we can send out letters, we can send out emails, we can post it online, we can do robocalls. There's always someone who didn't get the information. But if you're looking for the information, you should be able to find it. And I think that was a bigger issue a few years ago, going on the city website and you're actively looking for information and you can't find it. I think that's the first step we need to take, and we're moving in that direction. So people who actively want to be involved can look and find the information they're looking for. And then from there, we'll have more people who are actively involved. If it's easy to get involved, more people will be involved.
Absolutely. I agree with that. If you were going to pick an issue to tackle in your next term, what might that be?
Um,
Or maybe it's something you didn't finish yet. I mean,
yeah, I think my big issue and the biggest issue that I hear from people in my ward is sidewalks and roads. How do we improve that? How do we increase funding for that? It's not a simple fix. I've been doing some research on different programs that we might be eligible for through the state that would help pay for some larger projects. We do have a lot of large streets in Ward 3. Mm-hmm. The Central Street project is being fully funded by the federal and state government, which is amazing. I think it's a $21 million project now, and that's not being paid for by the Peabody taxpayers. I know Central Street's awful. The fix is coming. These things take time, but I think working with the mayor and with DPS to figure out what's the best way. We have a laundry list of sidewalks that need to be repaired throughout the city. There's never enough money. There never will be enough money to just fix them all at one time. But coming up with a strategic plan of how do we fix as many sidewalks as possible year over year, and how do we communicate to the people waiting for those sidewalks to be fixed when their sidewalk will be fixed. I think that's the biggest issue, back to communication, is if someone calls me and they say my sidewalk's been on the list, and I can confirm, yes, your sidewalk's been on the list, I can't tell them when that sidewalk's going to get fixed. They've been on the list for 4 years. Is it going to be another 2 years? Is it going to be 3 years? Is it getting fixed next week? I have no idea.
My father was on that list. It was like 8 years maybe. I don't know.
But it's, and it's hard because there are some sidewalks that are significantly worse than others, and we do need to prioritize those. And I have one resident who uses a scooter to get around. And to me, if you have a disability, a mobility issue, that you need to either utilize a wheelchair or a scooter to get around from your driveway to your front door, or just around your neighborhood, your sidewalk should take priority because it's impacting your quality of life significantly. My sidewalk's not great, my neighbor's sidewalk's not great, but we can deal with that. We have other ways to get into our house. We don't have to utilize that sidewalk. I also live on a quiet road, so it's not super unsafe to walk into the street to go around a bad sidewalk. But figuring out a plan, really just hunkering down and doing that instead of kind of kicking the can down the road where the list just keeps getting longer and longer.
Is it a manpower issue or a money issue, or both?
I don't want to speak for DPS, but I think it's a financial issue. Okay. I think the amount of money that we get from the state in order to do things has not gone down, but has remained stagnant while the cost of the labor and the supplies has increased. So it has in a way gone down. And we utilize most of that money to pave roads, which need to be done as well. So, we're trying to figure out creative ways, and I think that's a big priority for me. It was this past term and moving forward, certainly.
So tax dollars don't pay for the paving part of state money?
We can opt to fund additional money to do things like that. Gotcha. We did do that as a council this year. We bonded for, I don't want to misspeak at how much it was, but it was a few $1 million that will allow us to do like larger road projects. And the mayor kind of identified, with the help of the ward councilors, major roads that need to be repaired that, if we were to repave, so one in Ward 3 is Margin Street. A portion of it was done, but then the portion that goes from Gardner Street to Salem needs to be redone. There's water issues there. The surface is not smooth and causes a lot of issues. So if we were to pave just that section, then no other street in Ward 3 would get paved that year, because that would be the full funding that can really be allocated to the ward to pave streets from the state. So we did opt to add additional funding through the city solely to do that, and I that's an initiative I would support moving forward. We have to put a little bit more money behind everything to get caught up.
I suppose this is your challenge pretty much on any subject, is how to balance revenue and projects that need to be done, right? And nobody wants their taxes to go up, but that's also how things that affect the residents get paid for, right? So
yeah. But I
Somewhat
think,
anyway.
you know, we see our taxes increase, the value of our homes increases,
Yes.
which in turn increases our taxes as well. But if we could see what if what we're seeing for services, you know, is more tangible, so we can see that the roads get paved and the sidewalks get fixed, I think more people are apt to say, okay, I can see my tax dollars at work. But when you don't see, those are very easy things to visualize about your tax dollars. And when you don't see that happening, people get frustrated. And I think we can increase communication around that issue and what we're doing to try to fix it. So moving forward, I think that will be a strong focus for me next year.
So, are there any votes that you would maybe go back and change? And if there were, why? Or what were they too?
I don't know that I'd change any of the votes that I made. We certainly had some difficult votes over the last 2 years. I think one of the first votes I took was for the Children's Museum. And that was a really hard vote because it's a financial risk. And it's one of those things, do you spend money to make money, where we weren't really in a great financial situation as a city. I opted to move forward with a positive vote on that, and I'm happy to say that what we're seeing come out of the Children's Museum is so significant, and I'm so glad that it's working. That was a hard vote because when you look at the numbers, you're like, I don't know. This could work. It might not, but that was a bit of a risk that I think the city took on. And, you know, we've heard from the director there and from their board that they're moving forward with changing over to be a nonprofit, away from this being a city department. So that caveat that we added to the vote was what allowed me to, in my conscious, vote yes on that. So I'm happy to see it doing well. My kids love the Children's Museum.
Yes.
And
Thank you for your vote.
Yes. And so that was a hard vote, but I don't regret it. There are some, you know, special permits that we issued that, looking back and how things have unfolded, I probably would have asked some more questions. I would have maybe taken a step back, but you get thrown in, and I really got thrown in. So I had a special permit almost every single meeting for the first 6 months, at least one. And as a new councillor, you just kind of there's no handbook, so you just figure it out. There's a few that maybe I would ask a few different questions on, but don't regret the votes that I've taken.
What is your favorite thing about the city?
I think my favorite thing about Peabody is we're such a large city, but we have such a small town feel. And I've said that since growing up. Going out and talking to other friends or colleagues that worked or still work in municipal settings, it's very odd how many people grow up in Peabody and stay in Peabody. That is not common in other parts of the state or the country. So I think that speaks volumes to the community that we build here. That's probably my favorite thing and why I've chosen to raise my kids here.
It's funny, I was speaking to somebody in Salem, and they were surprised that our population was greater than Salem. They thought, you know, because Salem presents itself as a larger city, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think people, they hear of Salem. You know, when I went out to college, I went to college in Western Mass, and, you know, where's Peabody? Oh, it's next to Salem. Oh, do you go to Salem on Halloween? Absolutely not. So they do. They present. They're well known. But yeah, a lot of my colleagues in other municipalities, they're very surprised to hear how large, land-wise and population-wise, Peabody is. We're much bigger than people really think.
So, what is your least favorite thing about the city, if there is one, and what would you do to fix it?
I think everyone's least favorite thing is the traffic. That's probably my least favorite thing. But how do we fix the traffic? I think we're working on that. You know, developing different plans for downtown and creating a more walkable downtown. And I think those things will go a long way. The traffic that we see now is unfortunately from development in Salem. So we haven't actually put up any of the apartments that were approved to be built in Peabody yet. And so that is certainly a significant challenge that we're facing currently, and we need to really grab a hold of in the next 5 years. Any
vision you have for the city you'd like to see incorporated in the master plan?
Yeah, so I'm very excited and happy the mayor asked me to sit on that steering committee. So that was a big thing I ran on. It took a couple years ago. Was just what's our direction? We haven't had a master plan in 20 years. That's actually what I went to school for, is public administration. So getting involved in setting a plan, having a 5-year strategic plan, having a 10-year plan, having a 20-year plan is so important to really direct where we're going. Because if we can just come up with a vision, what that vision is, I don't know. And I think that's why we have this board to kind of steer the vision of the master plan. But we need to figure out what the vision is so that we're not piecemealing the vision for 20 years down the road.
Exactly.
So, the current mayor and the previous mayor did a lot of work for the downtown. And I think that vision has shifted, even within those two administrations, that vision has shifted because times have changed. So I think moving forward, focusing on downtown, but also branching out and looking at places like the industrial park that, I used to work in Centennial Park. It sits largely open right now. And focusing on how do we bring people to our downtown, to revitalize the downtown, to revitalize the businesses downtown without overcrowding our schools. And that's another thing. Where do we find another school to put these extra kids in? The population trend shows that the school age population in Peabody will grow in the next 5 years. So working within the current elementary schools that we have, we're going to run out of room at some point. So I think that really needs to be on our 5-year plan, and then looking as a whole, how do we get to the 20 years? Where do we want to see ourselves as a city? And I'm happy and excited to see what the public has to say about that.
So where can people find you, Councillor, if they want to reach you?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Peach 4 Ward 3, spell out 4. And that's usually where I post everything. I try to share updates from the mayor. I share about our council meetings or any other board meetings that are pertinent to things going on in Ward 3. A lot of issues about 114 coming from the state that I'll try to share updates whenever I get them there. You can also email me, stephanie.peach@peabody-ma.gov. You can call me, 978-595-1173. I'm always surprised when I can remember that number. And then my campaign email, if you have any campaign questions or would like to help or put a sign out or anything like that, is peachforward3@gmail.com.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.